Hello, this is Socially Triggered, and this video is going to be on the way the mainstream media is promoting ignorance and promoting sort of this blissful ignorance. And what really struck me was how many people are really ignorant of what's going on with the coronavirus. I looked at the stats. I'm like sort of a junkie, news junkie, and I tried to look at as many sources of information as possible. And I knew about things that they're only now just reporting in the mainstream media. And it's really interesting to me that they just don't do any digging. That this mainstream media was basically handed a juicy steak. If you think about it, like a plague like the coronavirus should be major news. I mean, they jump on like somebody getting hit by a car, but yet something that's having a global impact, they completely ignore. And I can understand the reasoning for why they do that. I mean, you could say the noble reason would be ignorance is bliss. That if you keep people ignorant, they won't panic, the things will go on, and the economy won't get destroyed. People won't start raiding the local stores, and you'll have like some semblance of day-to-day life. And that's a good thing, that they actually keep people ignorant for that reason, because you don't want those things to happen, and they could very well happen. The truth of the matter is they like to downplay it, like as if it's like no worse than the common cold. Now, the common cold actually kills a lot of people per year. It's about 500,000 to 600,000, depending on the severity of the cold, every year around the world. Now, that's a pretty big number. And you think about it, wow, gee, the coronavirus, it's killed like a couple thousand people, maybe a little bit more. It's not even close to that big number. Well, the way the common cold works is it takes a few months to kind of set in. It takes like, usually it's like 6 months where it's gradually building. And the death rate of the common cold is around, 0.1 to 0.2%. It's like a pretty small amount. And it's usually old people that die from it. It's, you sneeze on them, they're going to die anyways. It's kind of level, So it's not that serious. Now you take that compared to the coronavirus, and it's spreading as fast, or if not faster, and it has maybe 8 to 10% death rate. So that's like many orders of magnitude bigger than the common cold. So it could potentially kill millions of people. So, downplaying it with the common cold is actually not a good idea, especially once those death tolls really start hitting higher numbers. Remember, we're only 2 months in. This is just the beginning of the coronavirus. And they're a year and a half out before they even will have any kind of vaccine against this disease. So there is some fear. There is some reason to be fearful. But the media is doing everything they can to downplay it. Now, there's a bunch of reasons for that. The mainstream media is generally fairly lefty, and they really like the idea of globalization, like the one world order kind of situation. They don't want people to start closing borders. They don't want people to start being paranoid about other people. Like one of the mainstream memes almost is the fact that they push the idea that if you are paranoid about Chinese people, which is a justified paranoia actually, then you're being xenophobic, and that's just silliness. You got to protect yourself, especially with coronavirus, where 2 to 3 weeks you don't know if you even have it. So a lot of the people that are traveling back and forth from China they might not even know that they have it. And it's only, it's only safe, precautionary measures that we can take is to avoid, people that potentially are, going to be carriers of this disease. It's just common sense. You avoid potential risk. And it's not xenophobia. So these are the kind of things that's happening. So the funny thing is the Trump administration has a similar agenda. Not in terms of globalization, but they don't want to see the economy tank. And they don't want, especially in an election year, for that economy to tank. Because they're predicting already like a 1% to 6% drop. And the stocks in the last week have dropped about 7%. So the stock market's down 7%. It's almost lost all the gains that it has gotten from the previous year. So it is really down already. And that's without even the levels of fear that could exist if people knew the severity of this disease. So, there is a reason for him to try to keep the ship afloat as much as possible, to keep things going and keep the economy going. Because once everything kind of shuts down, then the real danger can set in. The real danger is not the coronavirus. The real danger is that the economy tanks, people stop producing stuff, people, everything slows down. One of the things is, like I saw a really old video where they were talking to Margaret Sanger. Now she's a Planned Parenthood person. She was a strong advocate for population control. And at the time, this was in the 50s, she was talking about that the world could only support about 1 billion people. And it was a big number. And she said that, and at the end, I think they were talking that if it got to 2 billion, there would be a crisis. There would be things would really get bad. And, and I think it was actually maybe even a little bit higher than that. But the point is, we're well past that number now in terms of the people on the planet. We're around 7 to 8 billion. And it's the only way we can maintain that kind of level of population is through the systems that we have. And the systems we have produce food on demand. They produce, it's all these things, like very systematic things that, it's like so finely tuned that it's very efficient. But if it ever breaks, all of a sudden people starve. And you see that in China where, all of a sudden these cities are quarantined and there's food riots and there's issues with food because, everything is so timed that if you mess up the timing, well, all of a sudden people don't have access to the things that they need to survive. So that is the real issue. If there's ever that kind of breakdown of the system, well, many more people could die. As I said, the world isn't intended, it shouldn't really be able to support all of us. But it can, because we have such really amazing systems where we can, have it so efficient that not as much food is wasted, that things are delivered, that there's a supply chain, and we get the food and resources we need. Now, so it could be the case that the media and the government are working to maintain all this. And if they know that they tell the truth and say, oh, it's far worse, start panicking, start hoarding, and people will do those things and the whole system will collapse. So it could be. So this is the concept behind why I was saying it's ignorance is bliss. Because as long as we remain, like the normies out there remain ignorant of the situation, maybe things will go on as usual. And, maybe, a few million people die, but, if you just ignore it and keep on going on with your life, things will be okay. I mean, China has done that many times. If you look at China's history, they have like these famines where literally millions of people will die, and they just go on as if nothing happened. So this is my thoughts on this whole thing. Why, the motivations behind why the government is being so silent about this stuff, why the media is being so silent about what's really going on, and why they're not really being investigative journalists. I mean, generally when you have a story like this, you want to investigate, you want to find out what is really happening. And that's the way I'm driven. I'm very into finding out all the stories. And I know so many things about the coronavirus because I want to know what's really happening. And that same curiosity has been lost in the general public. We've been so spoon-fed for so long that we've lost that sense of curiosity, and we've sort of become dependent on being told what the real situation is, which makes it very easy for us to be controlled. And maybe, I'm just being a little bit of devil's advocate, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe in this case, where we don't want widespread panic, it's a good thing that the media isn't taking that approach that it normally does, where it gets everybody hyped up over almost nothing, that we aren't doing that. So this has been my thoughts. I'd like to know your thoughts. Should the media be honest about what's really happening? Should the government be honest what's really happening? I mean, if you look at, just quickly, if you look at what happened with South Korea, the way the government is behaving is amazing. South Korea is being very honest about the numbers of people infected. They're being very proactive in terms of actually testing people even before they even show symptoms. They're going out and actually testing whole cities just to make sure that nobody has it, and if they do have it, that they're quarantined. And they're telling people, if you have flu-like symptoms, don't go to the hospital. They tell them, don't go to the hospital. Because that's the natural tendency, you want to go to the hospital. But if you do that, what's happening is you're going to the hospital and infecting everybody in that hospital, and basically making that hospital useless for people that are having for people that are having maybe different problems that need medical attention. But what they do say is, if you feel like you have flu-like symptoms, stay at home, call us, and we'll come to you. And the reason they do that is then they can take the proper quarantine measures to make sure that you don't have the disease, first of all, but if you do have it, that you're not going to infect others. Especially you don't want to infect others at a hospital where they might be weak from some other disorder. So this is a much more proactive government, the Korean government. And I give them high praises for their honesty and openness. But it's something that it seems like maybe in North America, they're not mature enough to be open and honest with us. And maybe it's for this economic reason. Maybe it's for the fears that the whole system will shut down. But yeah, this is what's happening, and I'm curious what people think about this. Should we be honest? Should the government be honest? Should the media be honest? So thank you for watching my video, and please check out my other videos. It's not always about the coronavirus, but I talk about a whole bunch of different issues. And thanks for listening. Bye.